Welcome back to the Mindbender Mental Performance Podcast.
Welcome back to the Mindbender Mental Performance Podcast, the only podcast that former Licey baseball great turned professional pickleballer Enrique Barreneses makes players fuerza en la cabeza. El lugar es aquí, el momento es ahora. The place is here. The time is now. Taking it from the clouds to the dirt, one episode at a time, helping you overcome those mental and oftentimes emotional barriers that get in the way of consistent and confident performance. Today, the connection between learning and confidence. Confidence, as we've discussed in the past, is the belief that you'll perform well, not necessarily win or get the outcome that you want, but show up prepared, composed, and capable of getting the job done. It doesn't magically appear. Confidence is earned. Just like the one-armed bricklayer from Baghdad built the brick wall, brick by brick, through preparation bricks. In the book, The Mental Game of Baseball, Carl Kuehl, the great Carl Kuehl, and the great Harvey Dorfman talk about exceptional athletes. You know, the exceptional athlete, what they do is go all out to prepare for competition. And that's difficult. That's demanding. Preparation is the soil from which the confidence can grow. And learning, that's the seed. The question is, are you willing to embrace learning? Not just when it's convenient, but when it's uncomfortable. You know, learning requires a growth mindset. If you haven't read the great book by Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck, do yourself a favor and read it. And if you don't read, then there ain't no difference between you and a dude who can't read. But learning requires growth. Let's start with the brutal truth. You don't know everything. And I certainly don't know everything. And neither did the great philosopher Socrates, who famously said, "My wisdom lies in this. Unlike other men, I know how ignorant I am." Man, the truth in that. What separates average players from elite players isn't talent. It's curiosity and humility. Hall of Fame, the great Hall of Famer, Carl Yastrzemski, Yaz, kid playing for the Giants now, or it might be nephew, exemplified this. After 20 plus years in the Grande Ligas, Yaz could still be seen experimenting with his approach to hitting. He said, "I'm always looking for a better way. I am never satisfied." How many of the greats have said that? This is the mindset of a learner. This is the mindset of somebody who's always looking for improvement, never settling for, that's good enough. Being honest about your weaknesses, right? Vulnerability, humility. Ask yourself today, am I as open to learning as I could be? If the answer is no, that's going to be the first step as you become the one-armed bricklayer from Baghdad, laying the brick wall one brick at a time. Your first brick is going to be asking yourself, am I as open to learning as I could be? Ain't no growth without change. And change, that's uncomfortable. It feels like losing something familiar. There's a great quote by George Bernard Shaw. He says, "You have learned something. That always feels at first as if you've lost something." Again, quote, "You have learned something. That always feels at first as if you've lost something." Learning often requires unlearning. It's painful to let go of your old habits. It's painful to let pieces of yourself die off in order for you to become and metamorphosize into the next great thing and transcend. It's painful. Letting go of those old habits, letting go of the old techniques, the old belief system. But if you're not willing to change, you're never gonna grow. Speaking of growing and changing and becoming more than you are and putting in the roots to get the fruits, I often think of a great quote by marvelous Marvin Hagler, the boxer. I remember he said, "It's tough to get out of bed to do road work at 5 a.m. when you've been sleeping in silk pajamas." It reminds me of another great former big leaguer, Al Williams. He was playing for the Twinkies. After struggling in the big leagues, he was sent to the minors, somewhere in Sheboygan, who knows. He had a tough realization. He said, "I had to become satisfied with being a starting pitcher in the big leagues and the money I was making." He had become satisfied. Good enough. In the minors, he humbled himself. He reevaluated his game and worked relentlessly on fundamentals, back to basics. The result, he returned to the big leagues as a much improved pitcher, attacking the zone, using his pitches, trusting, not searching, competing, not comparing, executing, not expecting. You got to be intentional about what you learn. It's what it takes. You got to be open to better ways of doing things, experiment with new approaches, accept the discomfort as part of the process of growing, focus on the solutions, not the problems, persist through setbacks. Persistence beats resistance. Think solutions, not problems. When players make a mistake, the first instinct is often to explain or justify it. "Oh, the sun was in my eyes. The cutoff man wasn't where I thought he'd be. The ump blew the call." Sound familiar? Human nature to focus on the problem. But this mindset prevents our growth, stunts our growth. Ask yourself, what will I do differently next time? The great Bobby Mitchell of the Twinkies, too, offers a great example. After he missed a cutoff man on a throw, he could have dwelled on what went wrong. Instead, he shifted his focus. He made the adjustment. The greatest players and the greatest coaches, they all self-adjust, self-correct. Next time, he said, next time I'll take more time, he said, to make sure I see the cutoff man before I throw. Now, that approach identifies the mistake, it creates a plan for correction, and he mentally rehearses the correct action. What's the result? You grow. You do it better next time. Can you move forward incrementally at the optimal rate? And you've got to control your emotions while you do it. You've got to work on staying more neutral. Failure triggers emotions. Frustration, anger, self-doubt, itchy irritability, low-grade anxiety, damaging discontent. Welcome to the human experience. These emotions, though, cloud judgment, and they sabotage your learning. The intellectual system, not the emotional, corrects mistakes. The intellectual system, not the emotional, corrects mistakes. When you feel those emotions rise, go through this three-step release process, right? Physical action, breath on a focal point, verbal trigger. Maybe if it's a social situation, step away. Physically remove yourself from the situation, right? Breath on the focal point. Whatever sort of physical action you want to take. If you're a baseball player, step out, unstrap and strap on the batting gloves. If you don't wear any batting gloves, you're probably in the minority there. Grab your drip, whatever you're wearing, give that a tug. Pull the jersey, whatever physical action you want to use. Then take a breath on the focal point. Look at the left field foul pole. Left field foul pole, let it go. Then use a verbal trigger. Breathe, let it eat, compete. Let's go. This pitch, bring it on, whatever you use. Start to focus on ways and steps when the adversity hits the fan, when you're getting emotional. How are you going to turn adversity into your advantage? Well, you have to have a series of steps that you go to help you flush it, release it, and bring you back so you can play the game pitch by pitch. It's pretty hard to hit two pitches at once, and that's what you're trying to do if you can't let go of the last pitch before you hit this one. Embrace your failure. Let failure be feedback. Let fear be your fuel. The best players see failure not as an endpoint, but as the part of the process. I remember the great John Wooden, who said, failure isn't failure unless it's failure to change. Consider the great Neil Lomax, QB1, going from fifth string freshman quarterback on a partial scholarship to an emergency starter to NCAA legend in the run and shoot offense. And his head coach's name, Mouse Davis. Incredible. He held 90 NCAA records, including 7 touchdown passes in the first quarter against Delaware State. This dude was benched after 52 straight starts. Instead of sulking and getting all poo-poo pants and getting bitter, he got better. He asked himself, what can I learn from this situation? The great Neil Lomax, he made adjustments. He regained his starting role and improved his performance. Failure, when approached with the right mindset, again, mindset is how you perceive yourself and the world around you, becomes a powerful teacher. Failure, when approached with the right mindset, becomes a powerful teacher. And persistence beats resistance. Learning isn't a linear path. It's not a straight line. Progress is slow. It can be fascinating, frustrating, and often it's invisible. But persistence separates the good from the great, the elite from the average. How about Charlie Hustle? Pete Rose, one of baseball's all-time greats. Rose was a switch hitter. MLB's all-time leader in hits, games played, at-bats, singles. He won some chips. He won batting titles. 17 all-star appearances in an unequaled 5 positions. Dude played on the grass and the dirt better than anybody. This dude exemplified this. As a minor leaguer, he lacked a lot of standout physical talent. Let that be a lesson for you talented dudes out there. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. But Charlie Hustle's mental toughness was unmatched. He was the first player on the field in the morning. He was the last player on the field at night. He was relentless in his pursuit of improvement. His persistence in the game, his constant preparation, his constant focusing on fundamentals earned him a career that included over 4,000 hits. And as I mentioned, 17 all-star appearances. The key to lifelong learning, if you're serious about learning, here's the ultimate shift, right? Be curious. Be curious, not judgmental. Lesson number 1, be curious, not judgmental. What can I learn from this situation? Why does my coach see this as important? Why do my folks see this as important? Why did my teammate mention that? Why do they see it as important? How can I apply this lesson to my game? The moment you stop being curious, you stop growing. There's a big cost of not learning. When we fail to learn, we've learned to fail. When we fail to learn, we've learned to fail. If you're not willing to embrace learning, change, and persistence, you're choosing average. You're choosing mediocrity. You're choosing to let your potential go untapped. Learning is a choice. That's what I want you to take away from today. Stay curious. Always look for ways to improve. Embrace failure. Use it as feedback. It's not an endpoint, it's a lesson. A setback is a setup for a comeback. Failure is feedback. Fear is fuel. Persist. Persistence beats resistance. Progress is slow, but it's worth it. It's worth it. If it was easy, everybody would do it. And remember what Yaz said, the great Carl Yastrzemski. You can't be afraid to change. So don't be afraid to change, to fail, or to ask questions. Be intensely inquisitive. Be afraid and have fear of staying the same. Para mis jugadores latinos, más línea, más vida. Hasta la próxima, recuerda. Si quieres ser un jugador disciplinado, comprometido y preparado en el futuro, empiezas esa mierda hoy. Se necesita lo que se necesita y lo mejor está por venir. Until next time, if you want to be a disciplined, committed, and prepared ball player and person in the future, start that today. It takes what it takes, and the best is yet to come.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.